Tourists go home, ban Airbnb, and even stop brunch. Some of the slogans you'll see graffitied around Barcelona and on t-shirts and placards at the anti-tourism rallies, which have made international headlines in recent years. More on those infamous water guns you might have heard about later on. Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name's Lorcan Doherty and today we're talking about tourism, specifically quality tourism. Joining me today is Oriol Escudé. Hello Oriol.
Hello Lorcan, how are you?
I'm very well, it's good to see you.
It's very exciting to be here.
It's in our new lovely surroundings. It's good to be back. Filling the Sink has been away for a little while, but we're back with a few changes. The obvious one is, as well as listening to us, you can now see us. Hello. Our first video podcast then, so let us know what you think in the comments. I'm back as your regular host again. You can't get rid of me that easily. Thanks to Beth and to Leah for all their wonderful work. And the other big change is that Filling the Sink is now going to be a monthly podcast rather than coming out every week. And that means more time for us to dig even deeper into the stories and topics that make Catalonia tick. And remember, de mica en mica s'omple la pica, little by little, the sink fills up. That is, of course, the lovely little Catalan phrase that gives the podcast its name. Now, tourism is one of those big topics that always gets huge interest from our audience every time we cover it on Catalan News. I think it's fair to say there's some agreement. Everyone agrees that tourism is important for the economy of Catalonia and Barcelona. On the other hand, I think everyone acknowledges the negative impact that tourism can have and has had in Barcelona, for example. Where there isn't agreement, perhaps, is what to do about it. The latest strategy we're hearing a lot about, Oriol, is quality tourism. What does that mean?
So there's no consensus about what it means. The term actually it has no clear definition and it's very ambiguous. At its core, quality tourism is usually understood as attracting wealthier tourists that spend more money. It stands in contrast, for example, to mass tourism, which is what we can fairly say that it's been happening in the last few years. Quality over quantity. Another key point, apart from money, it's that this strategy will address the downsides of mass tourism. Things like gentrification, housing prices, the loss of local identity. All these things, quality tourism strategies should fix them. But there's always critics, and critics say that at the end, this measure is just a way to attract wealthier tourists, but that they won't necessarily leave a smaller footprint. They say that tourists are people, and there's no people of high quality and people of low quality.
The strategy has been introduced recently both by the Catalan government and then more specifically by Barcelona City Council as well. Of course, both run by socialist governments at the minute.
Correct. And the aim of this podcast was a little bit from these speeches that we hear over and over again by politicians, and the term quality tourism has been a constant every time that we heard about tourism. It was introduced after the COVID pandemic, 2022, and it was actually introduced by Barcelona's current mayor, Jaume Collboni. But at the time he wasn't mayor, he was deputy mayor, and he was already speaking about quality tourism. So in the post-pandemic years, with the tourism boom again, and all the negative consequences of tourism, the investment or the strategy that the socialists in the city council and then in the government with Salvador Illa implemented was this quality tourism strategy.
And we've seen the new strategy, for example, in the slogans. Now, you might say that's just marketing, but it's very important as to how Barcelona or Catalonia is viewed around the world. And we've seen Visit Barcelona, which was a slogan for 15 years, changed to This is Barcelona. So I suppose the message was, come and visit us. And now the message is what? This is us. The idea, I suppose, also is to project to the world the best of Barcelona. That's what the Barcelona Tourism Office says. And they've described it as a radical change in how we promote Barcelona. It's a similar story at the Catalan level. The Catalan Tourism Agency also launched a new slogan just a couple of months ago. More Catalonia, better tourism. So not more tourism, you'll notice. At the launch, the business minister, Miquel Samper, talked of backing a shift from volume to value in tourism and calling for residents as well to be put at the centre. Aside from all these slogans, Oriol, what does the strategy actually involve?
There's two key words. We've got quality tourism and then we got two more, which are descentralitzar in Catalan, decentralize, and desestacionalitzar, which is a very big word, deseasonalize.
Yeah, not one I've heard, but I suppose that would be the translation.
Exactly. So basically spread tourists over the 12 months of the year and not only on peak times like summer, and spread them around the territory as well. Within Barcelona, we could say, get them out of Sagrada Familia, Passeig de Gràcia and these things, and get them all over the city. And also in a Catalan level to get them across the territory.
Specifically, Barcelona City Council has also been taking some concrete measures to attract more so-called quality tourism.
Exactly. One of them being the ban on pub crawls, for example. This was a big measure across the city. It was already banned in the Old Town. Now it was effectively implemented in La Champla. Now it's going to be implemented in the whole city. That's the first and more recent direct measure, but there are many others and big ones. For example, eliminating tourist flats like Airbnbs by 2028. Another key measure has been the reduction of cruise ships in the city. They have been reduced from 7 terminals to 5 terminals, and that's a first in many, many years, putting a stop to the increase of cruise ships by 16%, more or less.
So there's actually going to be less cruise passengers. I think the capacity is dropping from 37,000 to 31,000.
Exactly.
It's quite unusual. It's quite an unusual.
It is. It's unprecedented. And then we also have the increase of the tourist tax. That's going to double by 2029 from the current €4 to €8.
Culture is another aspect of this. The Tapias year, the Miro 50th anniversary, Gaudí anniversary next year. Again, it's aimed at a certain type of tourist, maybe not the ones that would be doing the pub crawls that have been banned, for example.
Exactly. And it's this investment in culture. For example, we had a recent example in Passeig de Gràcia. There was a very old cinema that closed down, and the city council bought it, and now they're going to make a Carmen Thyssen museum. That's, again, this part of strategy of investing in culture, in museums to attract these so-called quality tourists, as well as food. For example, Catalonia this year is the World Gastronomic Region. Culture again, food, the architecture year that's going to happen next year. Barcelona is going to be the World Architecture Capital. So it's these all of events that will attract visitors all over the year for different events, architecture, gastronomy, culture.
And diverse events too, so that it's not just about going to the beach or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got a bit of a handle now on what quality tourism is. Time to hear from some experts on the topic. No offense, Uriol. What do they think of the concept? More importantly, do they believe it's achievable, and how? Uriol, you were speaking to Patricia Diez, who's a professor at EAE Business School, and Eulogio Bordas, who's the president of THR, that's a tourism consultancy group. He was actually critical of the term quality tourism itself.
The term quality tourism is unfortunate. Tourism is made by people, and there are no people of high or low quality. What is usually meant is tourism that generates added value, more jobs, greater benefits for companies, and higher tax contributions. A more accurate term for this would be high added value tourism. If tourism is not well managed, it often has many other effects, costs borne by local residents who are not responsible for them. Gentrification is one such impact, as is the loss of aesthetic value that many residents experience. These problems arise because the tourism industry has developed with little clear criteria.
While Eulogio criticizes the term, Patricia defends the model as a way to reduce the negative impact of tourism on the city.
Well, it is focusing on increasing not just the number of visitors, but in fact to increase the results from visitors coming to Barcelona, Catalonia, and so. And moreover, how can we manage all this large quantity of people coming to our site? So the thing would be just to focus on our resources and how can we manage all resources we have.
Still, Eulogio warns that transforming Barcelona's tourism model won't be easy.
Achieving a substantial improvement and strategically reorienting tourism in Barcelona is not a short-term task. It requires a horizon of 5 to 10 years and an investment of at least €4 billion. Without the necessary economic mechanisms in place, even the clearest and most ambitious vision will remain unrealised.
Patricia believes spreading out tourism is key to improving visitor flow across the region.
So what can we do in the medium seasons, such as spring or autumn or even winter? Well, Spain, Barcelona and Catalonia have a lot of resources, such as Pyrenees, the beaches, and in fact, inside country. So we can manage to put the focus on all these kind of resources. I would say yes to mix all these kind of resources and put them in value, as if something is not known, for sure, no one will be interested in visiting it.
Another hot topic is airport expansion. Does it align with the quality tourism model?
AENA no es las hermanitas de la caridad.
The airport regulator, AENA, is a publicly traded company whose primary mission is to maximise profits, not to act as a charity. Whether tourism is of high or low quality is irrelevant to them. Their business model is based on selling services to every plane that lands, regardless of whether its passengers are wealthy or not.
For Patricia, however, good infrastructure is precisely what allows for better control.
Big airport allows us to receive a big quantity of people, a big amount of people, and to manage flows. It doesn't mean we are just going to be rid of Ryanair or EasyJet or this kind of low-cost companies, but instead we are going to be able to receive much long-haul flights, because those are segments which have money to spend in the country, and this could be our intention.
Then there's the future of tourist apartments. What will happen when they are banned?
Els allotjaments turístics tipus Airbnb han vingut.
Airbnb-style tourist apartments are here to stay, as they clearly respond to the needs of a specific segment of the market. To deny this reality, or to propose banning them outright, is again just banal rhetoric, an expression of not understanding how the market actually works. That said, it is important to acknowledge their limitations. Each Airbnb unit generates roughly 20 times fewer jobs than a hotel bed, and guests staying in such accommodations tend to spend less on food and entertainment compared to hotel tourists.
Thanks very much to Eulogio and Patricia. I should mention that the official tourism agencies that we've been talking about, Barcelona and Catalonia tourism agencies, both declined to be interviewed on the topic at this time. We did reach out to them. We've been hearing, Uriol, about some of the measures the council and the Catalan government have been taking, but if we look at the number of visitors, it's still very much in the mass tourism territory, isn't it? This summer, according to one study, Barcelona was found to be the city with the highest density of tourists in the world, over 200,000 tourists per square kilometre. So, are we seeing any signs that we're moving toward more quality tourism or not?
It's probably too early, and the data is a bit confusing. It's contradictory because some of it points that we're going towards maybe, yes, a quality tourism, and that the strategies that they're implementing are effectively working, and some other data points to the completely opposite side. So if we look at Barcelona, tourism keeps growing, and it's going to be another record summer. We've had over 900,000 tourists in the city in July, which is 5.6% more than the same month last year. Barcelona remains the most visited city in Spain, and this continues to grow, and this points to the mass tourism side, not the quality tourism strategy, right? But if we look at Catalonia as a whole, the picture is slightly different, and it might be the first sign that these strategies decentralize, deseasonalize, they are effectively working. Catalonia in July welcomed 2.3 million tourists, and that's 1% less than last year. But if we look at tourist numbers from January to July, it's 1% over, it's 1% more than last year. And if we look at January, for example, it grew by 12%. So this deseasonalized and decentralized strategy, it's working because we have more tourists in January and in peak months like July, and we'll see in August because we don't have the data yet, but it'll probably be slightly less than before.
And what about spending?
So again, contradictory data. If we look at how much tourists spent last year, it has decreased a little bit, so it looks like they're spending a little less money, and they're staying less than they would before. But this is not likely due to quality tourism strategies or any kind of strategies. It's mainly because of, experts say, American tourists coming less because of the weaker dollar. it's 15% more expensive to come to Catalonia now than it was a year before. And then what airlines do is to close this gap with tourists from other countries, which might not be as of high quality as Americans.
Might not spend as much money, basically.
Exactly.
Another aim of the quality tourism strategy is sustainability.
It's all a bit related. One key aspect of sustainability is concentration, and the deseasonalization strategies go in this sense. When tourism is very concentrated, it is less sustainable because it has more impact on local resources like public transport, water, energy, etc., etc. Also, we create very big infrastructure for summer months. For example, we might be a Costa Brava little town that has a huge infrastructure in the summer that's overcrowded, but then for the rest of the year, that infrastructure is of no use. So that's not sustainable. So again, decentralizing and de-seasonalizing are two keywords in sustainability as well.
And of course, mass tourism has an impact on local people as well. It's a hot topic politically and within society here, isn't it? There are some kind of smallish practical steps that we see are being taken to improve people's everyday lives. We've got a few examples.
A great one here in Barcelona that also made international headlines. It was this bus route that was going to Parc Güell, and the neighbors in that area said that they couldn't access their houses or they couldn't go home using that bus line, which is really useful because it was overcrowded. There was huge queues outside the bus stop. And so what they did, and it worked very well, neighbors say now, is just remove it from Google Maps.
Another factor that improves people's lives is their salaries. And the tourist industry, Uriel, is one of the most precarious. What's the situation?
It's very useful to compare the tourist industry with other industries. We can see that in Catalonia, this is data from 2023. The people employed in the tourist sector made an average of 23% less than those in other sectors. But apart from getting less compared to other sectors, it's one of the most unequal sectors within the sector. Half of those in tourism have received less than 20,000 euro a year. And also the gender gap between women and men, it's huge in the tourism sector. 40% of the women in the tourist sector in Barcelona are women, and on average they got 20% less than their male counterparts. Now, apart from salaries, temporary contracts are also a huge problem. But here, it's again one of those contradictory data that we get. There's a positive trend in the tourist sector in the last few years, and it's that temporary contracts have reduced. And so it could be a signal that this seasonality problem, it's been solved a little bit. The number of workers in the sector with a temporary contract before the pandemic was over 30%, and now it sits at 13%. So the improvement is huge.
Looking at the big picture, around 12% of Catalan GDP depends on tourism. And of the 4 million workers in Catalonia, nearly 16% are in jobs related to tourism.
And this is one of the classic comments that we get.
We see it all the time, don't we?
Yeah, all the time. In Instagram, every time we post something on tourism, there's always someone, especially when it's related to anti-tourism protests, that we'll talk about soon. But the counter-argument is always the same one, right? Yes, but tourism is essential.
Exactly. Maybe two people who might be able to refute some of those comments that we get on social media are Carla Izcara, a researcher at Alba Sud, which is a Barcelona-based independent research centre focused on tourism from a critical perspective, and José Mansilla from the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And we spoke to the two of them, and we started by asking José if the concept of quality tourism can be successful.
I think that this kind of concept, they are success because they mean nothing at all.
Quality tourism for political administrations and the economic sector, José Mansilla says, can also mean projecting the idea of a different kind of tourism or tourist.
They throw the papers to the to the trash. They don't spit on the floor. They don't drink a lot. They don't sing in the street. This kind of things, right?
This idea of quality tourism, or moving toward tourism focused on travellers with greater purchasing power, really took off as one of the exit strategies from the COVID crisis, Carla Izcara explains. And not just in Barcelona. In places like London, Paris, Ibiza and Mallorca, and even parts of Latin America and the Caribbean, there's been a kind of race or competition, Carla says, to attract high-spending tourists. In Barcelona, strategies involve promoting events such as the America's Cup sailing competition, trade fairs like the Mobile World Congress, and even the recently announced reform of cruise terminals at the port of Barcelona, prioritising smaller vessels, which, Carla says, we can assume are luxury vessels. So can these measures be effective?
No. I mean, we live in a capitalist system. So from a regional or a local administration, what you can do is basically two things. Marketing campaigns, very sectorial, very fragmented in order to bring these specific people. And on the other hand, to talk with the sector, with the people of the hotels and restaurants, etc., in order to increase the prices.
Theoretically, Jose explains, if you increase the price of everything, the middle class and the working class won't come because it's too expensive, leaving you with so-called quality tourism. But as we've seen this year, he says, the middle classes, the working classes are still coming.
What they are doing is just change their strategy. They say, okay, we cannot afford to go to a restaurant every night, or we cannot afford a hotel in the city center in Barcelona, but we can go to supermarkets in order to buy stuff, and we can, instead of sleeping in Barcelona, we can sleep in a very close village. So it's the same. We have a very good transportation system, so it's easy to do that.
As for raising prices, Barcelona has already spent more than a decade as the most expensive city in Spain, Jose says. In short, he's sceptical, saying the real reason behind this pivot to quality tourism is so politicians can be seen to be doing something.
The idea or the objective behind this kind of strategy is not to bring this kind of people, and that's my point of view, just create a discourse, a narrative that can be taken by the people in Barcelona that at the end they are not very happy with what's happening in tourism in the city.
What's more, even if effective, targeting higher spending tourists doesn't necessarily mean more wealth for the city. For us at Alba Sud, Carla says, this is the big lie. Just because tourists have greater purchasing power doesn't mean there's a greater redistribution of profits or greater economic benefit.
There are studies that saying that precisely this kind of tourism is even worse for touristification, environmental impact.
He cites a report from the Barcelona Hotels Association that found that the more expensive the hotel, the more water guests use. We're seeing that luxury tourism doesn't increase wages or generate better working conditions, Carla explains. And what about those who argue tourism is essential? 12% of GDP, 14% of jobs.
Jo diria que sí, és veritat.
Yes, it's true our economy depends on tourism, Carla admits. But she argues it's very risky to rely on the tourism sector. The COVID pandemic was a horrific example of how vulnerable tourist-dependent regions are when travel stops, deepening inequality in places like Lloret de Mar on the Costa Brava and Salou on the Costa Daurada. Tourism is highly sensitive to external factors like rising violence around the world or climate change, so we can't put all our bets on tourism, Carla says. So what can be done?
I think that what we have to do is diversify the economy.
Jo diria que molt d'aquesta oferta el que s'hauria de fer és
Carla believes much of the current offer for tourists should be redirected toward promoting local tourism to meet the needs people have for leisure and enjoying the free time in their own area. We're not saying all of it has to disappear, she says, but maybe we need to rethink it, aim it at a different audience who also want to enjoy their surroundings, nature, culture and their holidays.
De la natura, de la cultura i de les seves vacances al final.
Thanks very much to Carla and to Jose. So we've mentioned already in the podcast, one of the big measures Barcelona is taking is banning these Airbnb-style tourist apartments. That means, I suppose, that we're going to see perhaps more hotels. If we're thinking about quality tourists, perhaps especially high-end or luxury hotels.
Exactly, and this is one of the fears of those against quality tourism. They fear that the city might become a city for the wealthy, a city with high-end hotels, a luxurious city. And there are some things that have happened recently that point towards that direction. Recently, a study said that Barcelona was the second city in the world for luxury tourists, behind Paris and in front of capitals like Rome, London, and Tokyo. Doesn't this make Barcelona maybe a really high-end city already?
And this, for example, is very visible on Passeig de Gràcia.
Exactly. And there's this figure that I really love. It's that 1 in 4 products sold in Spain to non-EU nationals are sold in Passeig de Gràcia.
That's incredible. On one street.
Exactly. It's the biggest street in Spain. And it's really aimed at high-end tourists.
So tourists from the United States, from China, these kind of big spenders.
Exactly.
This change towards luxury in Barcelona has already been felt for a while, no? And the number of luxury hotels has been growing.
Yeah, so the number of beds in 5 stars and grand luxury hotels, the biggest hotels, they have increased by more than 50% in the last decade. Meanwhile, if we look, for example, at the total number of hotels in Catalonia, they have increased, but not that much. They've increased by 26%. And for example, looking at these luxurious hotel beds, they've increased from 8,000, more or less, hotel beds in 2012 to nearly double, 14,000 last year. So this shows that luxury hotels in Catalonia, especially in Barcelona, are booming.
And with the Airbnb ban, as it's called, we might need more hotels to kind of satisfy the demand from visitors, no?
Exactly, and this is something that it's happening already, especially because this demand for 5-star hotels is pushing out people who's maybe looking for a more modest hotel around the city, outside Barcelona. We're seeing hotels in l'Hospitalet de Llobregat, in Badalona, in cities around Barcelona, also because they can open there, because they have licenses. Right now in Barcelona, it's not allowed to open new hotels. So yeah, the demand's moving also across the city, and in the city, we're seeing that the hotels that stay are, especially those that are of more luxurious.
No, I don't know about you, Ariel, but whenever I talk to friends and family, I suppose especially people who don't live in Barcelona or Catalonia, they're always asking me about the anti-tourism protests. And, what's going on? Is it true that, everyone's out in the streets, that they don't want any tourists and stuff?
It was absolutely crazy. And it was a bit shocking because the images were great and had a big potential to be trendy and controversial. But there wasn't that many people, right?
Yeah, this is a funny thing. The first one that kind of went viral was last summer 2024, when people used water pistols. But, I was just looking at our article on it today, and, there was only a few thousand people taking part, which for a protest in Barcelona isn't that much. And even this summer, I was at one of the protest. There was a big anti-mass tourism protest calling for degrowth of tourism. And there was loads of international media there. I recognised some faces from local media, but I could hear so many people speaking English. And I was saying, where are you from? And, people from the States, people from the UK, people from, people from the Middle East and everywhere, and all covering this story. And again, I think the police said that there was about 600 people at that rally. Organisers put the figure at 3,000. But the impact it has, like I've seen videos, from BBC, CNN, all the big media outlets around the world have kind of said, what's going on with tourism in Barcelona? I hope that by listening to this podcast, you know a little bit more what's going on, the strategy behind it. And throughout this month as well, we're going to be publishing several articles and videos on the topic so that people can explore it a little bit more. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks for listening and watching. Thanks to everyone that we spoke to. Thanks to Guillaume for filming us for the first time. And thanks to you, Oriol.
Cheers, Dorcan.
As I said, keep checking out Catalan News and all our social media channels. This month, we'll have loads more on this topic, which we know that you're all very interested in. We'll be back again next month with another episode of Filling the Sink. Until then, from me, Lorcan Doherty, and all of us here at Catalan News, bye for now. Adeu.